should have slammed the door that night. But instead, I stood there staring at him like an idiot. Him. My boss. My impossible crush. The man who had built walls so high I nearly believed he didn't feel anything at all. And then, with a voice shaking like it had never belonged to him, he said the words I'd been desperate to hear for 3 long years. I love you. It would have been perfect if he hadn't waited until the moment I walked away. New York was cruel in the way it swallowed people like me whole, ambitious enough to dream, foolish enough to fall in love where I shouldn't. When I first stepped into Franklin and Carter, the marketing firm that shaped me and then broke me, I didn't know I'd spend years hiding my heart behind late-night projects and stolen glances across glass-walled offices. And I didn't know that Ethan Carter, my boss, would hold me in the palm of his hand without even realizing it. Ethan was the kind of man you built stories around, precise, devastatingly confident, the type whose presence made rooms quieter. He had that rare mix of discipline and chaos. Every word out of his mouth could either save your career or ruin it. And me, I was just another analyst who came in with a tie slightly crooked and eyes that lingered too long on him when I thought no one was watching. But he watched. God, he always watched. The problem was, Ethan Carter never let it slip. Not once. Not when he leaned over my desk at midnight to correct a presentation slide, his cologne wrapping around me until I couldn't breathe. Not when our hands brushed as he handed me coffee, and his gaze lingered a beat too long. Not even when I dared him with silence, waiting for anything that might prove I wasn't imagining the entire thing. So when I handed in my resignation letter, I expected nothing. Maybe a sharp nod, a clipped good luck, and then back to business. What I didn't expect was his voice breaking as he begged me not to go. I can still feel the weight of his hand catching my wrist before I reached the door. Daniel. He said my name sounding like a confession itself. Don't do this. Please. Not without knowing. And that was when the world cracked open. The thing about love, especially love you've buried for too long, is that it doesn't spill out gently. Crashes. Claws. It burns. Ethan's words came out raw, unpolished, like he'd been rehearsing them in his head for years but never trusted them to be spoken. He told me he'd fallen the moment I challenged him in that first meeting. That every late night we worked together nearly destroyed his self-control. That he hated himself for being too afraid to risk everything. But why now? Why wait until my heart had already broken itself into silence? I remember laughing ugly. Bitter laughter that filled the office like broken glass scattering across the floor. You don't get to do this, I told him. My voice was shaking, but I meant every word. You don't get to admit it now, when it's too late. You had years, Ethan. Years. His face, usually so composed, was wrecked with something I'd never seen before: regret. It looked foreign on him, like a suit that didn't fit. Still, the cruel part of me wanted to believe him. God help me. I wanted to throw everything down and just collapse into his arms. But the rational part, the bruised, scarred part that had been ignored too long, told me love wasn't real unless it showed up when it mattered. Not when it was convenient. I left anyway. Walking out of that glass tower felt like peeling my own skin away. The city noise hit me like a wave, and I blended into the blur of headlights and footsteps. A man trying to outrun the shadow of someone he loved too much. But love doesn't loosen its grip that easily. Every step I took away from him, the weight in my chest grew heavier. For weeks, Ethan haunted me. Every subway ride, every late-night takeout box in my lonely apartment, every time my phone buzzed with a number I refused to answer. He texted. He called. He sent me emails I couldn't bring myself to open. I deleted them all, but his voice still echoed in my head, begging me not to go. And yet he stayed gone, Until one rainy Thursday evening, I saw him again. It wasn't supposed to happen. I was sitting in a cafe in Brooklyn, typing aimlessly into my laptop, when the door opened and there he was, drenched, exhausted, but unmistakably him. Ethan Carter, in a place so ordinary it felt wrong, like seeing a wild animal caged. His eyes scanned the room, and then they landed on me. The moment stretched thin between us. My stomach twisted. I should have stood, walked out, vanished into the storm. But I couldn't move. He approached slowly, as though afraid I'd disappear if he came too fast. He didn't smile. He didn't try to play it cool. He just stood there, dripping rainwater onto the cafe floor, and whispered, "Daniel." And God help May wanted him still. Ethan didn't sit until I nodded. And even then, he chose the chair across from me like the space between us might keep me safe. His hair was damp, clinging to his forehead. His usually immaculate suit creased and ruined by the rain. For once, he looked human, vulnerable, and it terrified me more than his power ever did. "I didn't come here to beg," he started, voice low but steady. "I know I lost that right." I let out a sharp laugh. "You lost more than a right, Ethan. You lost me." He flinched, and for a second I thought he'd crumble. But he didn't. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes burning into mine. "I know. And I've been paying for it every damn day since you left. I don't care about the company. I don't care about the board. I don't care about the press. None of it matters without you there." It should have been everything I wanted to hear. Instead, it felt like salt on an open wound. "Then why didn't you say it when it mattered? Why did you let me walk out of that building, thinking I meant nothing more to you than an employee you could replace?" His jaw tightened, a muscle ticking as he fought for words. "Because I was afraid. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of ruining you. Afraid that if I crossed that line, I'd drag you into a world that would tear you apart. Daniel, I've spent my entire life protecting myself from this, what I feel for you. And the moment you left, I realized that fear cost me everything." I stared at him, my chest rising and falling too fast, my hands trembling under the table. His confession was raw, stripped of the polish he always carried. But the question still gnawed at me. Could I trust it? Or was it just desperation now that I was gone? "I don't know if I can believe you," I whispered. He reached across the table then, slowly, giving me every chance to pull away. His fingertips brushed mine just barely, and it was like lightning shot through me. "Then let me prove it," he said. "Not with words. With time. With actions. However long it takes. Just don't shut the door on me completely." I should have pulled back. I should have protected myself. But instead, my hand turned, my fingers curling around his. The cafe disappeared in that moment, the rain outside softening to a lullaby against the glass. And all that existed was the warmth of his skin against mine. The weeks that followed were cautious, fragile, like learning how to walk again. Ethan didn't push. He showed up in ways that startled me, dropping off lunch at my apartment on days he knew I'd skip eating, waiting outside the subway just to walk me home, sending me books he thought I'd love with handwritten notes tucked inside. It wasn't grand gestures. It was patience. It was the quiet persistence of a man who had finally decided that love was worth the risk. And slowly, painfully, the anger I carried began to crack. One night, he invited me to his place, not with expectation, but with hesitation. Just dinner, he promised. Against my better judgment, I went. His apartment wasn't what I expected. For a man who lived like an untouchable executive. His home was warm, filled with shelves of worn novels, framed photos of his younger self with people I'd never seen, and a messy piano tucked against one wall. "You play?" I asked, running my fingers over the keys. "Not well," he admitted, "but it keeps me honest." He played that night. Clumsy, imperfect, his long fingers stumbling over notes. But when he looked up at me, eyes softer than I'd ever seen, I realized something I had tried so hard to deny. I still loved him. Of course, it wasn't easy. There were nights I snapped, reminded him of the pain he'd caused, the years I wasted wondering if I meant anything to him. And every time, he listened, really listened. He didn't defend himself. He didn't make excuses. He just took it, absorbing every wound I threw, until eventually, I had no more weapons left to use. One evening, months later, we stood on his balcony overlooking the city. The skyline glowed like fireflies, and the air smelled faintly of spring rain. I leaned against the railing, arms folded, unsure if I was ready for what I knew he was about to say. "Daniel," he began, his voice steadier than ever. "I've told you I love you before, but tonight, I want you to hear it differently. This isn't about desperation. This isn't about timing. It's about truth. I love you. I always have. And if all you want is friendship, if that's all you can ever give me, I'll take it. But if there's even the smallest chance you could trust me again, I'll spend the rest of my life proving I deserve it." The city seemed to pause, holding its breath with me. I turned to face him, searching his eyes for any sign of doubt, any crack in the armor. There was none. Just a man stripped bare, offering me his heart without conditions. My throat tightened. "You're a bastard," I said, tears threatening to spill. "You waited until I was broken to say it. You made me believe I was invisible for years. And yet God help may still love you." He closed the distance between us then, hands framing my face as though I were something fragile, irreplaceable. His lips brushed mine gently at first, then with the urgency of years wasted, and the city around us melted into silence. When we finally pulled apart, I laughed through the tears. "If you break me again, Ethan, I swear, I won't." He interrupted, pressing his forehead against mine. "Not this time. Not ever." And for the first time since I left that company, I believed him. Love isn't about perfect timing or flawless words. It's about what you do when the moment is nearly lost, when the world has already told you it's too late. Ethan had failed me once, but he came back not with power, not with pride, but with humility and persistence. And somehow, against every piece of logic, against every scar I carried, I chose him, because love, when it's real, is worth choosing even when it terrifies you. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.